Welcome into MMA Live Extra alongside Brett Okamoto. My name is Todd Grisham. UFC 158 in the books in the main event. What a shock. George St. Pierre defeats Nick Diaz, and he did it in dominant fashion. Were you surprised at how one-sided this bout was?
Not really. You know, if you looked at stylistically what these two bring to the table, George St. Pierre matches up very well with Nick Diaz. That offensive wrestling that he has neutralizes what Diaz does well. And on the feet, even though Diaz can be very dynamic with that boxing style, George St. Pierre has that jab to disrupt his rhythm. So this was the fight I was expecting. The one question mark coming in was how composed would George St. Pierre be. He was very composed. He fought a smart fight. Everything went according to plan for him tonight.
As for GSP's next opponent, it appears to be Johnny Hendricks, the #1 contender who defeated Carlos Condit in the co-main event. But there's also another possibility out there. How interested are you in fighting Anderson Silva?
Yeah, I want to fight the best guy. It depends the scenario, what's going to happen. And, yeah, I want the big fight.
So you feel that one day that Silva fight will happen, you just don't know when?
I don't know. It depends on the outcome, and we'll see.
If George St. Pierre came out today and said he wanted to fight Anderson Silva, I'm not going to be upset about it. I can tell you that.
We know Dana White would love to see GSP versus Silva because of all the green money it would produce. How likely is this fight to happen?
I would say not likely at all, really. If you look at
Ever?
I wouldn't say ever. There's always that possibility out there. George St. Pierre seems to be in his prime. Anderson Silva's getting up there in age, but he hasn't lost a step, so you always have that potential out there if these two keep on winning. But right now, you talk about a fight that can make a lot of green. Anderson Silva versus John Jones could make a lot of green money. And I think another fight that a lot of fans are interested in now is Johnny Hendricks versus George St. Pierre, especially with how outstanding Johnny Hendricks looked at UFC 158 in a win over Carlos Condit.
Now, Johnny Hendricks has been begging and pleading with George St. Pierre to give him a title shot, but I asked Johnny if he was GSP, would he want to fight Johnny Hendricks?
I wouldn't. No, actually, I would right now. You know, I didn't look that strong in the third round, so if I'm GSP, I say, hey, I'll fight him the third. You know, I'll start. You know, I'll let him do what he wants to do the first 2 rounds. I'll finish him third, fourth, and fifth round.
So finally, it appears, at least for Johnny Hendricks, he'll get his crack at George St. Pierre next. What will that fight look like?
I'll tell you what, guys, that is a very interesting fight. You look at what Johnny Hendricks does well. He matches up really well with George St. Pierre and the strengths that George St. Pierre brings. He's got that left hand. And one thing we did see in the fight against Nick Diaz was George St. Pierre was caught by some left hands when the fight was standing. So Johnny Hendricks has one of the best left hands in the entire UFC. He'll look to land that thing on St. Pierre's chin, and he's got great wrestling credentials to counteract what George St. Pierre likes to do in the cage. So I'm excited for that fight. It's going to be a tough one to pick a winner.
Hopefully, if it does happen, it's just as good as what we saw on Saturday night, Carlos Condit versus Johnny Hendricks, a possible Fight of the Year candidate. For Brett Okamoto, I'm Todd Grisham from Montreal.